The first encounter. The jungle was alive with strange sounds. Heavy leaves dripped with mist. Shadows moved in every direction, making the air feel heavy and full of hidden eyes. A single human walked carefully between the massive trees, his boots pressed into the soft ground, sinking slightly with each step. He had been warned that this jungle was dangerous, but nothing could prepare him for what was waiting. The human carried only a small pack and a blade. He scanned the canopy above, where sunlight barely touched the ground. Strange cries echoed from far away, long, rising howls that sent chills through his body. The vines that hung from branches looked almost alive, swaying though there was no wind. He felt as if the jungle itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. A branch cracked. His body froze. At first he thought it was a beast, maybe one of the armored lizards that hunters spoke of, or the giant apes said to move in silence. But then he heard heavy footsteps. Not animal footsteps, too measured, too slow. Each one made the ground tremble. Birds fled the treetops in sudden bursts of color. The human gripped his blade tighter. His breath grew shallow. From the left side, a massive shape stepped out of the trees. At first he thought it was some kind of monster, but then he saw her. She was a woman, an alien woman, yet unlike any he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly under the dim light, patterned like carved stone. Her eyes glowed a pale gold, watching him with an intensity that burned. And her size, she towered above him, easily 12 feet tall, with shoulders broad enough to snap trees apart. The human stepped back, his heart hammering, but before he could move again, another sound came. From the opposite side, another giant figure emerged. His mind struggled to process it. Another alien woman, just as tall, just as fierce, but different. Her skin was darker, like storm clouds before lightning, and her eyes shone like burning silver. She carried a spear longer than 3 men standing together. The 2 women stared at each other. The air between them vibrated with unspoken rage. Then, at the same moment, both of them looked at the human. His blood went cold. The first woman raised her hand, pointing directly at him. Her lips parted, and she spoke in a deep, echoing voice. The words were not human, but their meaning was clear. She was claiming him. The second woman's expression twisted. She struck the ground with her spear, the sound echoing like thunder through the jungle. She too pointed at him, her face full of fury. She claimed him as well. The human's knees felt weak. He had been in battles before, had faced beasts with claws and teeth, but nothing compared to this moment. 2 12-foot alien women, warriors, in every way, were fighting over him, and they had not even touched yet. The silence of the jungle deepened. Even the insects stopped buzzing. The forest seemed to sense what was coming. The first woman stepped forward. The ground shook beneath her massive weight. She spoke again, this time with a growl in her tone. The second answered, her silver eyes flashing, her voice like a storm. The human couldn't understand their words, but he didn't need to. Every glance, every gesture, every low snarl, they were rivals. He tried to back away quietly, but a vine snapped under his boot. Both of their heads turned sharply toward him. The human froze. A tense pause filled the air, stretching long enough to crush him with fear. Then, without warning, both women moved. Each stepped closer, their massive shadows falling over him. Their size was overwhelming. His head barely reached their waists. Their hands, strong enough to tear through stone, hovered dangerously near. The human raised his blade, though he knew it was useless. Still, his instincts demanded he fight if he had to. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of attacking, the first woman's hand stopped inches from his chest. Her golden eyes softened, as if she were looking at a rare treasure. She whispered something in her strange tongue, the tone almost gentle. The second woman hissed in anger and shoved the spear's point into the earth beside him, shaking the ground. She roared a challenge at her rival, her voice so loud that birds exploded from the trees in every direction. The human covered his ears, trying to make sense of the chaos. But one truth was now clear. He wasn't just lost in a dangerous jungle. He was the center of a storm. 2 alien sisters, both 12 feet tall, had claimed him, and neither was willing to back down. And as their anger grew, the jungle around them seemed to grow restless. The vines swayed harder, branches creaked, and animals fled. The human realized that this was only the beginning. Whatever was about to happen, the jungle would not survive it. The first encounter had begun. Claimed by giants, the jungle held its breath. The human stood frozen between the 2 towering alien sisters, each of them 12 feet tall, each refusing to let go of their claim. The first woman, the one with golden eyes, stepped closer. Her massive hand hovered above his shoulder, as if she were ready to pull him to her side. Her size was overwhelming. Her fingers alone were longer than his forearm. The human felt the pressure of her presence like a mountain leaning over him. But before she could touch him, the second woman struck. The silver-eyed giantess slammed the butt of her spear into the ground so hard that the soil cracked open. A shockwave spread out, rattling the roots and knocking loose a rain of leaves. She let out a sharp cry in her alien tongue, filled with anger and command. Her meaning was clear. He is mine. The first sister snarled back. Her golden eyes blazed, and her body tensed like a predator ready to strike. She pushed past the trees with such force that bark split and vines snapped. The human realized too late that he was caught in the middle of a fight that could tear the jungle apart. He raised his blade, though he knew it was worthless. Against one of them he had no chance. Against 2 there was nothing he could do. But instinct kept him ready, even as fear sank deep into his bones. The sisters faced each other, and the air between them grew heavy, thick with rivalry. The golden-eyed one stepped to his left while the silver-eyed one circled to his right, both trying to pull him closer to their side. Their massive shadows stretched across him, swallowing him whole. And then it began. The golden-eyed sister moved, first. With a speed shocking for her size, she grabbed for the human. Her hand closed around his arm, and he felt his feet leave the ground as she lifted him effortlessly. Her skin was warm, her grip like iron. But the moment she touched him, the other sister roared. The silver-eyed giantess lunged forward, swinging her spear sideways. She struck the golden-eyed sister's arm, not hard enough to kill, but enough to make her release him. The human fell, hitting the ground with a heavy thud. Dirt filled his mouth, but he scrambled up fast, his heart pounding like drums. The 2 sisters clashed. The golden-eyed one's hand shot out like a strike of thunder, slamming against her rival's chest. The silver-eyed sister staggered back, but swung her massive spear in return, cutting deep grooves into the earth. The sound of their battle was like thunder rolling through the jungle. Trees snapped, vines tore. Birds screamed as they fled the treetops. The human dove behind a fallen log just as one of the giants crashed into it, shattering it into splinters. He shielded his face, coughing as dust filled the air. His mind screamed at him to run, to escape, deeper into the jungle. But every direction felt like a death trap. The ground shook as the silver-eyed sister slammed her spear against her rival's arm. The golden-eyed one caught it with her bare hands, bending the weapon with sheer force. The human watched in disbelief. Their strength was beyond anything he had ever known. But still, even in their fury, they kept glancing at him. That was what scared him the most. Even as they fought, even as they tore apart the jungle, their focus never left him. He wasn't just an object caught in their path. He was the reason for the fight. He was the prize. The human backed away, trying to stay low. Each step was careful, quiet, his blade trembling in his hand. If he could just get far enough, maybe they would forget about him. Maybe they would finish their fight without him. But fate was cruel. The golden-eyed sister slammed her rival to the ground with a roar. Dust and leaves flew into the air. Then, as if remembering, her head snapped toward him. Her golden gaze locked onto his body, glowing through the dust. She reached for him again, her massive hand stretching out like a shadow across the earth. The human turned and ran. He sprinted through the underbrush, branches whipping against his face, vines pulling at his clothes. His lungs burned. His legs screamed for rest, but fear drove him forward. Behind him, the jungle erupted in chaos as the sisters' battle followed. Trees toppled, Stones cracked. The roars of the alien women echoed, mixing with the cries of animals fleeing for their lives. The entire jungle was being torn apart, piece by piece, because of him. He ducked under a massive root, leapt over a small stream, and kept running, but the sound of pursuit never left. Their footsteps shook the ground, each impact sending tremors through the soil. The human's mind raced. Why? Why me? Out of all the things in this wild jungle, why were two alien warriors fighting for him? What did he carry? What secret did they see in him? No answer came. Only the sound of the jungle breaking apart. The golden-eyed sister's voice rang out, calling in fury. The silver-eyed one answered, her roar full of rage. Both voices thundered through the trees, and the human knew one truth. This fight would not end until one of them had him. The jungle trembles. The jungle was no longer silent. It was screaming. Every tree, every vine, every creature felt the fury of the two alien sisters as they clashed. The human ran, but no matter how far he moved, the sound of their battle followed. Roars, crashes, the earth splitting apart. Each sound reminded him that the giants were tearing the jungle into pieces. The golden-eyed sister swung her massive arm, striking her rival with the force of a landslide. The silver-eyed one answered with her spear, slashing through vines, branches, and even stone. Each attack shook the ground, sending dirt and leaves raining down. The human ducked behind a boulder, gasping for air. His body was trembling from fear, sweat running down his face. He peeked out and saw them, two towering figures locked in rage, their movements faster and stronger than anything he had ever witnessed. A massive tree toppled, falling with a thunderous crash. The roots ripped out of the ground, throwing mud high into the air. Animals shrieked and scattered. Flocks of bright birds shot out of the canopy, filling the sky in chaos. The human pressed his back against the boulder, his mind racing. They are going to destroy everything. They don't care what gets in their way. The silver-eyed sister spotted him. Her sharp gaze burned like fire. She shoved her rival back, slamming her into another tree, and charged forward. Each of her steps shook the ground like a drumbeat of war. The human's breath caught. He turned and ran, diving through vines, ducking under branches. The jungle was alive with danger. Snakes slithered in panic. Insects swarmed the air. Beasts thundered through the underbrush. But nothing was more terrifying than the two giants that followed him. He stumbled over a root and nearly fell into a pit, catching himself at the last moment. When he looked up, the golden-eyed sister was already in front of him. She moved with terrifying speed, her giant hand reaching down to snatch him like a child grabbing a toy. The human rolled aside just in time. Her fingers slammed into the ground where he had been, splitting the soil open in a deep crack. The silver-eyed sister roared in anger and attacked from the side, swinging her spear like a blade. The golden-eyed one caught the shaft with her bare hands, and the two locked in a contest of strength. Their cries echoed like thunder. The spear bent under the pressure, but neither would let go. The human crawled backwards, dirt caking his hands. His chest heaved with every breath. He felt like an insect beneath their shadows, powerless, fragile. The ground beneath them shook violently as they fought. Roots tore apart. Stones cracked open. A riverbank nearby collapsed, sending water rushing into the forest floor. The jungle itself seemed to groan in pain. The human climbed onto a ledge to escape the flood. From above, he watched the battle unfold. The sisters were relentless. The golden-eyed one slammed her fist into the earth, sending shockwaves through the ground. The silver-eyed one answered with a swing of her spear that cut down 3 trees at once. The human's mind spun. Why me? Why are they doing this for me? He pulled back his sleeve, wiping away mud, and froze. There was a faint glow on his skin, a strange mark, like lines of light crawling across his arm, shimmering through his flesh. He had never seen it before. It pulsed softly, as if alive, beating in rhythm with his heart. His breath caught in his throat. Is this why they want me? The sisters noticed it too. Their battle stopped for a brief moment. Both turned toward him, their glowing eyes fixed on the mark. For that heartbeat, silence returned. An eerie, heavy silence, as if the jungle itself was waiting. Then their roars split the air again. The fight grew even more violent. Each sister wanted him more desperately now, and nothing would stop them. The golden-eyed one ripped a stone pillar out of ancient ruins half buried in vines and hurled it. The silver-eyed one shattered it mid-air with her spear, the fragments raining down like deadly hail. The human ducked behind the ledge, shielding his head. He could feel the ground cracking beneath him, the ledge threatening to give way, and then it did. The stone broke, and he fell, tumbling down into the chaos below. He hit the ground hard, pain shooting through his body. When he opened his eyes, both alien sisters were towering over him again, each reaching, each desperate to take him. The human scrambled back, mud sliding beneath his boots. His blade trembled in his grip. He knew he couldn't stop them. He couldn't fight giants. The jungle around him groaned and split, trees falling, rivers overflowing, animals scattering. The war between two alien sisters was tearing it apart. And at the center of it all was him. The human realized something chilling. This wasn't just a fight between sisters. This was a war for him, and if it continued, the entire jungle would pay the price. Survival in chaos. The jungle was collapsing around him. The human ran, his lungs burning, as the two alien sisters fought like gods of war. Every crash of their bodies sent shockwaves through the ground. Every swing of their arms tore through the trees. The jungle, once thick and endless, was now breaking apart piece by piece. He leapt over a fallen log, only for it to be shattered. A heartbeat later by the silver-eyed sister's spear. Splinters whistled past him, cutting his arms and face. He stumbled but didn't stop. Behind him, the golden-eyed sister roared, slamming her rival back into the earth. The sound was so loud it shook birds from the canopy miles away. The human darted through vines, ducking under massive roots, his blade still clutched in one hand. His body screamed for rest, but fear kept him moving. He knew if he stopped, even for a moment, he would be crushed like an insect. A massive shadow fell across him. He looked up and saw the silver-eyed giantess stepping directly into his path. Her silver gaze locked onto him, filled with hunger and rage. The human dove aside, rolling through mud and leaves. Her spear struck the ground where he had been, carving a trench deep into the earth. Soil and rocks flew into the air, raining down like a storm. He scrambled to his feet and ran again. His heart pounded like thunder. Think, survive, don't stop. The golden-eyed sister burst through the trees behind him. She grabbed an entire tree trunk and hurled it like a weapon. The human barely managed to leap aside as it crashed down, splitting into two. The ground shook as the massive log rolled past, crushing everything in its path. He slid behind a cluster of giant roots, his chest heaving. For a moment he thought he had lost them. But then he felt it. The earth trembling, beneath their steps coming closer and closer. The human pressed his back against the roots, trying to control his breathing. Sweat dripped into his eyes. His blade shook in his hand. He felt smaller than ever, trapped in a battle between titans. The sisters' voices thundered through the jungle. They shouted in their alien tongue, sharp and furious. The words carried power, but also desperation. He didn't understand them, but he knew they were both demanding the same thing. Him. Suddenly, the ground beneath him cracked. Roots tore open. The silver-eyed sister's massive hand punched through, reaching for him. He gasped and scrambled out just in time, rolling across the ground as her claws dug deep into the soil. The golden-eyed one charged, slamming into her rival, knocking her back. The impact was like two mountains colliding. The shockwave threw the human off his feet. He hit the ground hard, his ears ringing, vision blurred. When he opened his eyes, the glowing mark on his arm pulsed brighter. The sisters saw it again. Their fury deepened. The human's breath caught. He didn't know what the mark was, but it was the reason they were tearing the jungle apart. It wasn't just about him. It was about something inside him. The sisters clashed again. Trees exploded around them. Animals fled in blind panic. A great riverbank split open, water flooding across the ground, turning everything into a swamp. The human fought through the rising water, every step heavier than the last. He grabbed a thick vine and swung himself onto higher ground, escaping the flood. The roar of water and the crash of giants echoed together like a nightmare. He crouched low, trying to stay out of sight. His heart wouldn't slow. His body wouldn't stop shaking. But his mind whispered the truth. If I don't find a way out, this jungle will bury me alive. The sisters roared again, their cries carrying across the canopy. The golden-eyed one slammed her rival through the ruins of an ancient stone wall, sending shards flying. The silver-eyed one rose, her spear flashing, and struck back with terrifying force. The human ducked as stones rained down. His hands covered his head, his body shaking. But through the chaos, he realized something. The sisters weren't just destroying the jungle. They were chasing him in circles. Wherever he went, they followed. The jungle wasn't the battlefield, he was. The human clenched his blade tighter, his jaw set. He couldn't fight them, not directly. But he could survive. He could outthink them. A fallen tree created a bridge. Over the rushing flood, he dashed across it, the wood groaning beneath him. Behind him, the golden-eyed sister roared and swung at her rival, missing by inches and smashing the tree bridge apart. The human leapt just in time, landing hard on the other side. He lay in the mud, gasping for air. His chest ached, his body bruised, but he was still alive. The jungle was scarred. Trees lay broken, rivers overflowed, animals vanished into the distance. Smoke rose from fires sparked by the clash of giants, and in the center of it all was him, the fragile human, still running, still surviving. But deep in his gut, he knew the truth. He couldn't keep running forever. The sisters wouldn't stop. They would destroy the human's secret. The jungle lay broken, but the battle raged on. The human stumbled across shattered roots and broken stone, his legs weak, his lungs on fire. Behind him, the two giant sisters clashed again. Their roars shook the sky. Their strikes split the ground. Every crash of their bodies sent a storm of dust and leaves into the air. He tried to run, but something stopped him. The mark on his arm burned. He yanked up his sleeve. The glowing lines were no longer faint. They blazed, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The light spread, crawling up his arm, across his chest, like fire under his skin. He gasped, falling to one knee. The pain was sharp, but not unbearable. It felt alive, like something inside him was waking. The sisters froze. Both of their glowing eyes turned to him. The golden-eyed one stepped forward, her massive body trembling with hunger. She raised her hand, her voice deep and echoing, chanting words in her alien tongue. The sound made the human's bones ache, as if she was calling to the mark itself. Silver-eyed sister snarled, slamming her spear into the ground. Sparks of energy leapt from the weapon, lighting the vines and stones around her. She too called out, her voice full of rage and desperation. The human staggered back. His mind spun. They aren't fighting just for me. They're fighting for this mark. They think it belongs to them. The golden-eyed sister lunged forward, slamming her hand into the ground before him. The earth cracked open. She growled a single word, pointing at his glowing arm. The silver-eyed one answered with a roar, charging in, her spear raised. The two collided again, but this time their strikes weren't just brute force. They carried energy. Lightning flashed through the trees. Fire sparked where their blows landed. The jungle screamed louder. The human shielded his face as debris rained down. His heart hammered. He felt the mark pulse harder, glowing brighter, as if reacting to their rage. He tried to scrape it away with his blade, desperate, but the steel passed harmlessly over his skin. The mark wasn't on him, it was in him. The sisters' battle grew worse. The golden-eyed one grabbed her rival's spear and snapped it in half, hurling the broken piece across the jungle. The silver-eyed sister answered by lifting a boulder, larger than a house, and throwing it. The stone shattered into dust against her opponent's chest, and through it all their eyes never left the human. He crawled backward, panic choking him. His body trembled with exhaustion, but his mind screamed for survival. Every glance they gave him carried the same message. You are the key. You are mine. The mark pulsed again. For a moment the human saw something, an image flashing in his Mind, a great starship, ancient and broken, hidden deep beneath the jungle. He saw symbols carved into its hull, the same symbols glowing on his arm. He gasped, clutching his head. The vision faded as quickly as it came. But now he understood. The sisters weren't just fighting over him. They were fighting over what he carried, an ancient power, a connection to something long buried. The golden-eyed one struck her rival to the ground and turned to him again. She reached for him with hands large enough to crush stone, but her face was not cruel. Her golden eyes softened, filled with longing. She whispered again, softer now, as if begging. The human's chest tightened. For a moment he almost felt pity. But the silver-eyed sister rose again with a roar, her broken spear now glowing with strange light. She charged like a storm, slamming into her sister, knocking her aside. Sparks exploded, flames caught in the underbrush, and the jungle began to burn. The heat forced the human back. The flames rose high, crackling, consuming vines and branches. Smoke stung his eyes, but he could not look away. The sisters fought, in the firelight, their massive bodies glowing red and gold. Every strike carried fury, every roar shook the heavens, and still their eyes kept finding him, reminding him that this chaos was all for him. The human clutched his arm, the glow spreading further now. His entire body pulsed with the strange light. Fear gripped him, but deep inside, another feeling stirred. Something he couldn't name. The jungle was dying. The sisters would never stop. And the mark inside him, Shan, was changing everything. The last clash. The jungle burned. Flames spread through the trees, snapping vines and filling the air with choking smoke. The human stumbled through the ash, covering, his mouth, his glowing arm blazing like a torch in the darkness. Behind him, the two alien sisters clashed with a fury that shook the earth. The golden-eyed one swung her fist, her strike flattening an ancient stone pillar. The silver-eyed sister countered with her broken spear, the weapon now glowing with raw energy. Every hit released bursts of light that cracked the sky like lightning. The human dropped to his knees, coughing. His heart pounded with terror, but also something new, anger. He looked at the burning jungle, at the fallen trees, the animals fleeing, the rivers turned to mud. This wasn't just a fight between two giants. This was destruction, and he was at the center of it. The golden-eyed sister roared, grabbing her rival by the throat and slamming her into the ground. The earth split wide, roots tearing upward like claws. The silver-eyed sister twisted free, striking back with her glowing weapon, carving deep scars into the soil. The human scrambled to higher ground, climbing broken stone steps that led to the ruins of an ancient temple half swallowed by the jungle. He stood at the top, gasping for breath, his glowing arm raised high without meaning to. The mark pulsed brighter than ever, casting strange light across the battlefield. Both sisters froze. For a brief moment, they stopped fighting. Their massive eyes locked onto him, wide and filled with hunger. The firelight made their faces look wild, desperate, almost broken. The golden-eyed one stepped forward, raising both hands. She cried out in her alien tongue, her voice filled with command. The silver-eyed one answered, her voice louder, filled with fury. The humans staggered back. Their cries rattled the ruins, shaking stone loose from the temple walls. He realized they weren't just fighting for him anymore. They were fighting for the mark, for the ancient power inside him. The golden-eyed sister leapt. Her massive body soared through the smoke, landing with a quake that shattered the temple steps. The silver-eyed sister charged after her, the ground splitting beneath her feet. The final clash began. The golden-eyed one struck with both fists, her blows shaking, the ruins apart. The silver-eyed sister answered with her glowing spear, spinning it in wide arcs that cut the air like blades of fire. Each impact sent shockwaves that blasted the jungle to pieces. The human was thrown back by the force, rolling across the broken stone. His body ached, his ears rang, but still he forced himself up. The mark pulsed harder, spreading across his chest, his neck, glowing like molten fire under his skin. The sisters struck again and again. The golden-eyed one roared, slamming her rival through the wall of the temple. The silver-eyed sister rose, from the rubble, her eyes blazing silver, and charged like a storm. stone towers collapsed. Fire roared higher. The sky itself seemed to tremble from the force of their battle. The human gritted his teeth. He couldn't run anymore. He couldn't hide. If he stayed powerless, they would destroy everything. Him, the jungle, and even themselves. The mark flared. He cried out as light exploded from his body, blinding and fierce. The sisters stopped mid-strike, shielding their eyes, their massive frames trembling under the power pouring from him. The human staggered forward, his blade forgotten, his arm blazing like a star. His voice shook as he shouted, "Stop!" The word echoed, carried by the strange power inside him. The ground itself seemed to obey. The fire paused, the smoke shifted, the ruins groaned in silence. The sisters froze. Their huge bodies stood still, their eyes locked onto him. For the first time they did not move, did not strike. The human's body trembled, barely holding the power. His heart pounded like a drum. His mind screamed from the pain. But he held their gaze, refusing to back down. The golden-eyed sister dropped to one knee. Her massive head lowered, golden eyes soft with surrender. The silver-eyed sister snarled, her pride burning, but even she hesitated. Her silver eyes flickered with conflict. Her grip on the broken spear loosened. The human's body shook. He knew he couldn't hold the power much longer. His voice cracked as he forced out one last command. "This ends now." The light flared brighter, washing across the battlefield. The flames bent away, the smoke tore apart, the ruins glowed in the strange brilliance, and for the first time silence fell. The sisters lowered their weapons. Their massive forms shook, their breaths heavy. They glared at each other, but neither attacked. The jungle lay in ruins, scarred and broken, but the war between them had finally paused. The human collapsed to his knees, his glowing arm dimming, slowly. His body ached, his vision blurred, but he was alive. He had stopped them, at least for now. But as he looked up at the towering sisters, both staring at him with eyes full of desire and fear, he realized something chilling. The fight was not truly over, it had only changed. The choice and the price. The silence after the clash was heavy. The jungle smoldered, its once green canopy now blackened and broken. Fires hissed as they died in the wet soil, smoke rising in long trails into the dark sky. The animals were gone. The rivers overflowed. The ruins of the old temple stood cracked and hollow, and in the middle of it all the human knelt, his body weak, his arm dimming after the burst of light. His breaths came ragged, his vision blurred, but he was still alive. Somehow, against all odds, he had survived two giants tearing the world apart. The golden-eyed sister stepped forward first. She dropped to one knee, her massive body lowering in respect. Her golden eyes glowed softly, no longer wild, but full of something else. Submission. She bowed her head to him as if he were not prey, not a prize, but a master. The silver-eyed. One stood tall, her spear broken in her hand. Her chest heaved with anger, her silver eyes flashing with pride. But even she did not strike. She glared at her rival, then at the human. Her expression was torn between fury and fear. The human's voice cracked as he whispered, "Why me?" The sisters did not answer. They could not speak his tongue, but their stares gave him all he needed to know. It wasn't him alone. It was the mark, the power buried inside him, the key to something ancient hidden in this jungle. They had seen it, they had fought for it, and they would never stop wanting it. The human staggered to his feet, his legs shaking. He looked at the ruined jungle, at the burned trees and shattered stones. This place was alive once. Now it was broken because of him. His heart tightened with guilt. But another thought came. Strength. He had stopped them, even if only for a moment. He, a single human, had stood against two alien giants. Not with weapons, not with muscle, but with will. The golden-eyed sister lowered her hand, open, waiting for him to step into her palm. The silver-eyed one slammed her broken spear into the ground, refusing to yield, but she did not attack either. Both were waiting. Both had chosen him. The human clenched his fists. His mind screamed with questions. What was this mark? Where did it come from? Why was it tied to him? But the answers were buried in ruins deeper than this jungle, in stories, far older than either sister. For now there was only choice. He could run, leave them, try to escape into the broken wilds, but he knew they would follow. They would never stop. Or he could accept. He could stand tall, claim the mark, and make them follow him. The human raised his glowing arm, the faint light shimmering again. His voice shook, but his words were firm. You want me? He looked at both sisters, his eyes hard. Then you follow me. On my terms. No more jungle destroyed. No more fighting. The golden-eyed one bowed her head deeper, golden hair falling over her face. She accepted. The man, silver-eyed sister growled low, her silver eyes burning with defiance. But slowly, painfully, she too bent her head. Not out of loyalty, but out of recognition. She had no choice. The human stood tall, his body trembling but his spirit unbroken. Around him, the jungle lay ruined, scarred by their rage. The price of survival had been heavy. Nature itself had paid it. But he was alive, and more than that, he had changed the battlefield. He was no longer prey, no longer the hunted. He was the one they now looked to. The golden-eyed sister rose, standing like a mountain at his side. The silver-eyed one straightened, her face still fierce, but her eyes never leaving him. The jungle groaned around them, smoke rising from its wounds. The human tightened his grip on his blade. He did not know what lay ahead, whether they would obey, whether the mark would consume him, whether other giants would come. But one truth burned clear in his heart. He was only one man, fragile, small, human. Yet in this moment, he was the one force that neither of the 12-foot alien sisters could overcome. The jungle would never forget the price, and neither would they.